Joining us this week on the show is the multiple-Eisner-award-winning comic book writer behind titles like Mr. Miracle, Strange Adventures, Danger Street, Animal Pound, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Love Everlasting, Human Target, Helen of Wyndhorn, and Wonder Woman. It is our pleasure to welcome Tom King back onto the Oblivion Bar Podcast.
You're not going to mention my Teen Titans annual I wrote back in 2013 because I don't.
And Teen Titans annual back in 2013.
Yes, I mean co-wrote. I didn't write the whole thing.
Co-wrote 2013.
Like, at least 6 of the pages. I co-wrote.
6 pages.
It would be a fool's errand to try to list out your entire bibliography, Tom. I mean, wild stuff.
What a joy to be here. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you guys do. You guys talk about my comics, and I love seeing it. And my comics are sold by people talking about it, and I just can't say how much I appreciate being here. You guys rock.
Well, we talked a little bit before the recording here. This is your 3rd time on the show, so welcome back. Obviously,
3-timers club. Club?
Yeah.
I just said club. I'm in the club.
You
Yeah,
are the club of the Oblivion Bar Podcast.
I heard that Christian Ward got here before me.
Yeah.
Which just means I got to get to 4 before him. Because I don't want to start a meme or anything, but fuck you, Christian Ward. That's all I'm saying.
I feel like it's highly likely that it'll happen with the amount of success that you all these books you got coming out right now. It's just it's insane the amount, and you're just killing it in every single one of them.
Well, that's why I write. I was like, every book I'm writing, I'm like, this could get me closer to the 4-timers club on Oblivion. I'm just like, I have that at the bottom of every pitch. I'll be like, I swear to God, DC, you fucking take this Brother Power the Geek pitch. I could hit the 4-timers club. And they're like, what the fuck? I don't know either Brother Power or Oblivion Bar where you're fucking get out of here.
Yeah.
What's going on? How are you guys doing? How's life?
Good. Tom, we did talk about it before the recording, but I want to mention as well that obviously Aaron and I probably look somewhat familiar because we work with Comic Sketch Art, which you were obviously represented by when you go to these conventions. And I've had the opportunity to interview you maybe more times than any other creator I've ever talked to. I've interviewed you for Whatnot shows. We did an eBay live show with Mitch at New York last year, if you remember that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We earned dozens of dollars.
Dozens. At least
dozens.
Like $28, I think.
At least from my art.
That's right. Well, and
we could almost afford breakfast.
Especially in New York. We can't even tip with that.
We're getting nowhere near lunch, but we were fucking coming right up on breakfast.
I bring all that up because I wanted to just point out that it's always a pleasure. Aaron and I made a point to say that we weren't going to butter you up too much in this conversation. We're all old buds at this point, but I want to make sure that's known that every time we have a chance to talk to you, it's an absolute just wonderful time. So we're happy to have you back.
I just love watching you draw.
Get in line, buddy. Get in line. Subscribe to my Twitch. I don't draw for free.
Every time you come up on a Whatnot stream, I'm just like, they're gonna make him draw something.
I point this out to Doc Shaner all the time. Of the two of us, I am the only one who has drawn pages for an Eisner-winning book, which means I am an Eisner-winning artist, whereas Doc Shaner, what has he done? Nothing. That's all I'm saying. And Christian Ward, not even sniffing my fucking Eisner-winning art.
That's right.
All right, well, let's get into this conversation, Chris. Shall we?
Absolutely, please.
All right. So, Tom, let's begin with your upcoming Dark Horse series with Supergirl partner Bilquis Evely, Helen of Wyndhorn, which hits shelves on March 13th. And here's a quick synopsis for the fans of issue 1.
If you have a quick synopsis of this book, I'm gonna be super happy because I have trouble doing a quick synopsis.
I'm
gonna copy the shit out of this. A quick reader of a long paragraph. It's like the Micro Machine guy could pitch this fucking book.
So, following the tragic death of her father, C.K. Cole, the esteemed writer of the popular pulp warrior Oath, and Helen Cole is shepherded back to her grandfather's enormous and illustrious estate, the Wyndhorn House, by Miss Lilith Appleton. Although chaotic at first, Helen soon discovers a lifetime of secrets hiding within the rooms and hallways of the expansive manor. For just outside its walls, within the woods, dwell the legendary adventures that once were locked away within her father's stories. So, Tom...
Holy shit, that's great! Fuck it.
Yeah.
Did you guys write that? I didn't write that. That's not me. Wow. Well done. Yeah, no. Do you can I hire you for parties or what the fuck? That was amazing.
Absolutely.
I dig it. I'm mostly like, if you like Supergirl, This is more of Supergirl.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what it's about for sure.
I would agree. We just want to ask, what compelled you and Belkis to team up once again for this story specifically?
You should ask Bilkis that, because what compelled me to do it was me saying, I will do anything you want, please. Work with me again. Do you want, I will write what you want to illustrate satanic poetry. I'll throw away all religion and just freaking, we'll go there. Whatever it is you want to do, I will do. And she said I wanted to create her own. And then she sent me a mood board, which was sort of like, I want to draw not high fantasy, but kind of like, fantastic figures. And she also sent me a lot of like 30s kind of art, old movie shit, which I'm also really into. So, and I sort of combined that into an obsession I had at the time with Gothic literature, plus an obsession I had with Conan. I mixed those all together and came up with this. But the deciding to do more was just, when we were on Supergirl, even though Supergirl sold like shit, I feel bad because it's my best-selling book now. Which I'm sure it's nothing to do with the movie, but and it's all 100% just the quality, right? But I knew at the time that it was something special. I knew she was doing something amazing, and I would have done anything to work with her again. So this all on Bill, because I did this. This is the next thing I did after Supergirl. I wrote this way back then, and she's been drawing it for almost 2.5 years now. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
Yeah, it seems like, or actually, I think I may have heard in another interview that there was a time during the pandemic where you were just kind of like knocking out, I'm doing this story for 4 months, and then I'm moving on to the next story. And then, going on and going on and going on. And I'm assuming, as you just said there, Helen of Wyndhorn was just part of that continuous writing during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it before we've had a publisher even. I was just like, she had an idea, and I was like, I'll get, and I'm fortunate at the time, like, because I was writing so much, I had, I could take enough time off for it without income, where I could just be like, I'm writing this all on spec. Someone will eventually publish this as long as Bilkis is attached to it. And so, yeah, I wrote it, whatever. I took a few months off and dove into this and read a ton of Conan, a ton of Gothic novels. And I was just lived in sort of this Helen of Wyndhorn for whatever it was. And I delivered to her at the beginning. I was like, here's 6 scripts. This is what it is. And she's like, I fucking hate the first issue. She was like, shit.
And you have to adjust to what Bilkis wants, because again, like you had just said, whatever she's on board for, it's automatically going to be compelling just to get, I mean, not to say that you're not also compelling, Tom, but like,
no, I'm not compelling at all.
Whatever.
Except for that one annual Teen Titans I wrote, the whole rest of
That's
shit.
right. Yeah.
And you guys didn't even fucking mention it. Jeez.
We can't give him all the heat. We got to just give him all the obvious ones. Got to make sure they're still looking for some of your better work. But I think it's also important that we discuss, kind of speaking on Helen of Wyndhorn, and again, of course, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow as well, is that there's a lot of similarities between both Lilith's narration in this first issue of Helen of Wyndhorn and Ruthie's throughout Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I feel like they both possess this kind of like severely detailed, long-winded approach in telling their version of these stories. So as a storyteller, where does that fascination come from with this with this style of narration?
I mean, sometimes you want to swerve as an artist or as a writer or whatever you want to call me. Like Mitch and I, after we did Sheriff, we had done, this sort of very militarized, grounded thing. And then he almost had been shoehorned into being that for the rest of his career. And so he's like, let's do something different. So we did like a big cosmic thing with Mr. Miracle. In this thing, I did not want to swerve from Supergirl. I wanted to produce a book, because again, I was so proud of that, where like, sometimes you get to the end of something great, and there was no more Supergirl. Supergirl is a complete story. It's a beginning, middle, and end. Mm-hmm. We couldn't do sort of a Supergirl issue 9. I wanted to do something where I was like, if you're a fan of this Supergirl, if you dug this, if you sat down and read this, and you're like, God damn, I love this. I want to read some more of it. I wanted to give them. So I very purposely made it similar, both in sort of the approach of, it's centered around a young woman, it's centered around all that stuff, and also using the same sort of narrative structure that I had used previously, which is, there's a lot of different words for it, but I always think of it as sort of the Sherlock Holmes narration, where Sherlock Holmes is actually narrated by Watson, who kind of observes Sherlock Holmes, the main character. Or you can think of the Great Gatsby version, where Nick observes observed Gatsby from afar. But to sort of continue to use that and to use a voice that has a very distinct, because I hate narration doesn't have a voice. And I was having so much fun with Ruthie doing these kind of like, it was this old kind of Southern True Grit, but also she was in space and she was 14 and kind of getting the words a little wrong, using all these, 3-penny words and shit. And, but with her, I just heard Wuthering Heights, which is narrated by two different narrators, but one of the narrators is sort of one of the like sort of high class maids. And so I was like, I'm going to use some of this kind of stuffy British lady to narrate this thing. So it's similar. She's still using big words, but it's not that like Old West thing that Ruthie had. Lilith is, she's much more sing-song. And when I do her accent, I'm, talking in this British accent when I read it out loud. So it's different and the same. That's the idea. But I love writing Lilith's narration. It's so much. There's an issue where her narration goes away. And I was like, I miss it so much. I was like, it's sad that it's not in this issue. Because Sir Helen takes over the narration for a second. There's
kind of a very specific question, and I'm curious. Rereading Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow just a couple days ago, actually, and I should just say for the listeners, for whatever reason, if you have not read Woman of Tomorrow, this is and I don't say this lightly. This Woman of Tomorrow is a bona fide masterpiece. And Tom, I would say that whether you were here or not.
Oh, holy shit. I mean, first you say you're not going to butter me up, then you're calling me a masterpiece, man.
It's all because of Bill Kiss. It's all
Bill Kiss. That makes sense. That tracks. No. Okay, now it's good.
No, but I'm reading Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and that last issue, when you see Ruthie talking to Krem there at the end, I feel like her way of speaking changes. Can you speak a little bit as to why that is? Was that intentional, or is that just kind of showing what her venture has been since she started? Of course, since the beginning of issue 1, leading up to that final moment where she has to decide whether she's going to take out Krem or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point for Ruthie, some of her shields are dropping. So like a lot of Ruthie is kind of puffed up. There's a lot of bluff to her. She's never actually been in a fight. She's never actually killed someone. And at that point, when she sees Krem, there's so much emotion there that some of her shields drop. At the same time that her shields are dropping, she's discovering that she's matured along sort of this adventure. So she's kind of being like, I put up all these shields to hide myself, and now they're dropping, and I'm finding a new woman underneath. Someone who's sort of been through some shit, just like Supergirl's been through some shit. So it was a combination of those sort of two factors where Ruthie's voice starts to change a little bit in the end. As her, I'm not ruining it, but her and Supergirl have sort of these opposite paths where they both have epiphanies at the end that are different from the beginning, and in the beginning, but they disagree, and then they disagree at the end, and at the end. So it's kind of like both of them are have changes as you go along, and that was Ruthie's change. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris explicitly explained to me before we started this conversation. He's like, "Do not butter up Tom. He doesn't like it. He hates it." I was gonna say that. So
I almost walked just then when he was talking about something.
I wouldn't blame you
if I had anywhere else to go, but I mean, all that's outside that door are my fucking children. So who wants to?
Oh, priorities. Yeah. So I read the first issue of Helen of Wyndhorn. And then I went back, and because I enjoyed that so much, I went and read the entirety of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. And I spot on with Chris about the kind of the parallels of Lilith and Ruthie's, like, kind of dialogue. The way that I looked at Ruthie's dialogue was, to me, and yes, I love the way that you explained it, how she had that bluster, how she kind of had to build herself up to not be such a small child from a small dirt farming or rock farming child. But to me, it wasn't. I wanted to ask you about the choice of her dialogue, because to be honest, I felt that her dialogue was very like almost above her class.
Regal,
yeah, like it's so to me it felt like it almost felt like a commentary style choice to make her dialogue not that of a like a simple farmer.
I mean, I think that's somewhat of, I don't know what you'd call it. I heard Jimmy Pommiai talk about this earlier, but sort of like the Deadwood effect. Mm-hmm. What David Milch did on Deadwood is he's like, everybody in the Old West is suddenly Shakespearean level eloquent, but they just use the word fuck a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you watch that show and love it, like I watched that show and love it, you're like, oh, this must be how they talked back in the Old West. They just must have been and so you kind of start, and even though that's like completely not true, nobody talked like that. It's as stylized as like Gilmore Girls or some shit, like, but it's as wonderful as Gilmore Girls. Just the dialogue's flowing for you. But I think so when I'm doing Old West talk, I start to switch into kind of that David Milch Deadwood, where the sentences flow into each other, and there's like highfalutin, but also it goes down into these kind of low weird words where he's just replacing random words with things. Mm-hmm. And it's also, and obviously there's a big True Grit influence on it. So there's some of the Coen brothers, both in the original True Grit and then the other Western they did recently, the Ballad of what's his name, where they use that same Deadwood technique of like everyone in the Old West happens to be incredibly articulate in how they talk. I don't know where that cliche comes from. It's brand new. It's obviously not in old Westerns, but I like it, so I'll take advantage of it.
Yeah. I just thought it was well done. But let's get on to the next question. You spent the majority of your career over at DC Comics, but we're now seeing
still there. I'm writing Penguin today of all people. Right.
Well, we're seeing Helen of Wyndhorn being published at Dark Horse, and also Animal Pound with Peter Gross over at Boom Studios.
Yeah.
What enticed you about those other publishers for these particular stories?
And Love Everlasting's an Image.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a different story with each company. Boom was very specific. The editor, my editor Eric, he was so nice to me in the beginning of my career when I just had nothing, and he signed me up for a book before Grayson came out. I was working on a book with Boom. And then I got the exclusive after Grayson came out, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I have to leave you. They're making me leave. And for 10 years, the dude checks. And he's like, Tom, how's it going? I read your stuff and this and that. And he's just a fucking good guy. And sometimes when there's just good guys in your industry, you will do, you feel like you owe them, especially when they're good to you when you're young and have nobody. So I had this idea, and I just called him up, and I was like, I owe you for fucking 10 years ago, man. Do you want this one? And he took my agent was really mad at me because you should always go with Image if you're a creator, right? You can own all the rights. But I don't know. Sometimes you owe people, and I owed him. So that's why when Boom, and they've been wonderful. I love what they're doing. I love how they're publishing it, and I love that. And I love how Animal Pound's coming out. It looks beautiful. They got a great team on there. They helped me find Peter. They helped me find Tamra. So it turned out to be exactly the right choice, but it was all about Eric, who then quit Boom and now works for Tynan. So at least I could be his last book. I could close him out.
How long is Animal Pound supposed to go? Because that first issue is insane. I'm just curious how long you can keep this gut punch going for consecutive issues.
It's 5 issues, 28 pages each. It was supposed to be 4. I extended it. So yeah, it's 5. I've written 4 of the 5. I don't know how I'm gonna wrap it up. I'll be honest with you guys. Sometimes, like my outline, it's just like it makes sense in the outline. I start writing, and I was like, "Oh man, I got no idea." But yeah, I've got 28 more pages to write before I'm finished with it. It's good. It's good. It's one of those books that it's doing well in sales, but it's meant to be a graphic novel that sort of lives forever. It's supposed to be kind of a for lack of a better word, a literary kind of thing. And it's an allegory book, which is weird, but I love it. And the cats, Peter Gross is drawing the shell, the cats and the dogs.
Yeah, he is.
And I think issue 2 and 3 are some of the best things I ever wrote. I'm not sure about 4. I just wrote it, but 2 and 3 are really solid. It's when we get into 4 and 5, we're getting into really it gets depressing. So
it gets depressing.
Yeah, thank you. I want to know who voices these animals in your head.
Well, it's based on not based on Animal Farm, but I don't know what it is. Inspired by Animal Farm, or like a sequel to Animal Farm, however you want to, a reimagining. And a lot of those characters are, the first pig is supposed to be Lenin, and the second pig is supposed to be Stalin, and then there's another pig supposed to be Trotsky. So like the dogs and the cats have real political kind of figures in my head that I connect them to. So I kind of hear those figures in my head. They're all American accents. It's not like Lilith. There's no or Wonder Woman, who talks in sort of a lot more kind of Greek pattern. But yeah, it's and you know all the dogs have all the names are symbolic, just like in the original Animal Farm, where you know like Snowball was the name of one of the pigs because he kind of starts shit and it gets out of control, and then Napoleon was the bad pig because he's like the conqueror.
Yeah.
So like you know that's the same with this, except for Madame Fifi, who's named after my brother-in-law's cat.
Was there a specific reason for each breed? So I went through and like tried to like pinpoint which character was which breed. So I thought like Madame Fifi was like a Maine Coon. You've got Lucky, who's like a Rhodesian Ridgeback, possibly. Obviously, Titan is a Doberman Pinscher. You've got Raven, who's maybe a Bombay Black Cat, just some kind of
Rhodesian Ridgeback, man. That is way too nice for Lucky. Lucky is a fucking pit bull mix.
He's a mutt.
He's a goddamn, just like my dog, a pit bull mix. That's you go to 90% of pounds in America, and 90% of them are pit bull mix. It's just the way kind of pounds in America are. And I adopted one of them, and she's the best of my 4 children. Mm-hmm. She's. No, the reason the dogs are, I mean, I'll put big dog, small dog, but Peter's going to have to draw these dogs 30 times an issue. So if he wants to draw, you know, he sees that cat and he's like, oh man, it'd be so much easier to draw a Calico than a Tabby. You go for it, Peter. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to hold him back. No, Peter's making most of the decisions. Piggy, the dog, I think I said was, you know, some sort of little fat dog, but besides that, fat bulldog kind of thing. But yeah, no, it was really depressing because again, I didn't name any of the dogs after my dog Roxy, who sits next to me as I write every day. But the one dog he took that looked like my dog was the first one that dies in the first 8 pages. No. So my kids are like, "You killed our dog in the first." I was like, "No, it wasn't specified." Maybe I probably
between this and Crypto in Supergirl, which just no spoilers, but obviously Crypto doesn't die in that, thankfully. But like
Crypto does not die. It was in They should send the first issue. It literally says in the parentheses, "Don't worry, Crypto does not die. I'm not a monster."
Well, speaking of Animal Pound, you pull 0 punches, like we just talked about during that first issue. It's truly Orwellian how almost every line of dialogue said by Madame Fifi or Lucky or even Raven could be studied in depth. What did you and Peter seek out to do differently in 2024 versus that original 1945 classic?
Well, the original Animal Farm was written, you know, at the height of World War II, when the Russians were very much sort of our allies, and the Communist Party in England was stronger than it had ever been. And Orwell, who had been a fellow traveler, who had been a communist, was very much flirted with communism, had been disillusioned during the Spanish Civil War, not the Spanish-American War, ain't that old, but the Spanish Civil War, where he got shot in the neck and sort of betrayed by Stalinist communists. And he was kind of sending a warning out or a shot across the bow, being like, we're getting really close to these Russians, and a lot of my friends love the Russians and communism. And there is, at the end of this communist road, there's fascism. He's like, I've seen it. I saw it on the ground when I was in a war. And he meant that as sort of a warning of like what could happen from the left. Orwell died very shortly after the book was published. And it was never a success in his lifetime. It became a big success when the CIA, my former employees, used it in the 50s as sort of a propaganda machine, sort of bought it for a bunch of schools throughout Europe, and then eventually came to our schools. And since then, it's sort of turned into this bellwether to this day, where my kids read it in school, saying like, there is this communist threat and there is a way that communism sort of turns into fascism. I don't doubt that Stalin was a fucking piece of shit. But right now, I'm not sort of afraid of communists turning into fascists. That's not kind of the thing that's on my radar. Like, I mean, I'm sure, there's lots of communists, but they're not coming to my neighborhood at this point. I'm more afraid of the fascism that, you know, that sort of creeps up upon, you know, I live on Capitol Hill. I was there January 6th, not part of it. I was just walking my dog by it. And I saw it all. I saw it go down with my own eyes. And
Tom's just enjoying a quick, you know, just a nice walk with his dog, and a bunch of incels are trying to break into the Capitol. What the hell's going on?
I'll show you the pictures of Roxy at the Revolution. She's she's just sitting there pissing on grass, and in the background you fucking see people invading the Capitol. It is funny.
There's pictures of Tom King just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. What is this?
I went out to see the protest, and it was like, because there's two sides of the Capitol. There's like the one side where they were busted in, and they like kind of like killed all the cops, and not all the cops, they killed some cops. And then there was my side, which is the other side, where the cops just kind of like moved to the side and let them in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the side I was on, and there was like not that. It was much smaller than I thought it would be. So I'm like tweeting, I was like, this shit's so small. Everyone's talking about, and then people are tweeting about, on the other side, there's a fucking revolution, Tom. And I'm like, oh shit. And I looked up, and then they just like rushed in. I was like, oh fuck. And my wife's like calling me like, get the fuck back here. Mostly I was worried. It was the height of COVID. So mostly I was worried about getting COVID from the whole thing. Because we didn't know the whole outside rule back then. Mm-hmm. But anyways, yeah. So I wanted to write about a fascist threat that comes from someplace different, from people sort of using our own system against us, and using that system to sort of turn us, to weaken our ability to vote, and to weaken our voices in our own government. And that's what Animal Pound's about. So it's not about sort of this old sort of communism. It's about sort of this new fascism that's arising today that I feel is more threatening.
Very relevant.
Yeah. I find it kind of fascinating that, in this first issue, again, try to avoid spoilers as much as possible, because I definitely want people to go out and read Animal Pound #1 before we talk about it in depth. But what I found really interesting, and you kind of alluded to it here just a moment ago, is that like the way that two completely opposite sides can work together for one goal, but it's almost like what happens after that goal is accomplished. Does the like kind of embedded goal, I'm trying to think of a better word, a more romantic way to say this, but like, does like the deeply embedded, almost sort of like, to make a pun, animalistic type of like impulse take over once you've accomplished that sort of all-in-one goal?
Well, I mean, issue 2 is out now, so I don't know if you guys have read it or not.
I haven't read issue 2 yet myself.
You see them try to sort of form the government between the cats and the dogs, and issue 2 is about why they sort of need the government, how they're sort of running out of food, and how they try to manage without a government, it doesn't work. And then the problem sort of immediately arises that there's more cats than dogs. And so the dogs are like, go fuck yourself. We're not going to form a government with you, because they'll just be cat rule forever. And then there's also a few rabbits who are around. And the dogs are like, the rabbits are going to support you because they support small animals and we're big and we want to eat them. And so the compromise they reached, because the dogs are going to walk out and they need the dogs because they're the most sort of powerful and they're the ones who sort of started the revolution. The compromise they reach is to do it by pounds, which is why the animal book's called Animal Pound, where they say, well, instead of yes, there's more cats than dogs, but dogs weigh more. So if we do it by weight, we're suddenly equal again. And that way we can have an equal government. And that's sort of the great compromise they reach, which is similar to, how we had sort of our electoral college, where it was like, the South was like, shit, you're going to outlaw slavery if, you have more people than we do. And we're like, oh no, we'll do a different weighted system. So you get some more votes. And we'll see throughout how that compromise, the compromise of pounds over votes, sort of ends up being the tragedy of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, I think this is kind of like a beautiful transition into more sort of like political overtones over at your other title, which is...
I swear to God, I don't try to write politically. I just want to entertain people.
Well, when there's a lot of truth to it, it makes sense and it's awesome. I'll give you the question.
I hate books that read like Twitter feeds. I can't stand them. The books that are just like, here's my opinion on what's going on. I just want to tell stories. I hate that shit.
What you said this in another interview. Go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I feel like, I'll tell you this. I bring this up every episode, every interview. I'm the new comic book reader of the crew here. I've just been reading for a couple years now.
Welcome to the nerd.
Thank you.
We're not doomed, but we're trying. That's our official motto.
That's a good motto. I think DC should start using that. I look back at from what I know of Golden Age and Silver Age comics, and that feels like a lot of where obviously comics originated from. So even if that were the kind of the case here, which I don't think it is, I just think it's I am seeing a trend recently of a lot of relevant topics in comics, and it really is, it's pulling me in even further, because I like the kind of the parallels of real world and the comic universes, and how they have their own commentary in it. And I mean, political or not, Animal Pound is brutally in your face, honest for multiple layers. It's like, it's like Shrek, it's got layers.
It's got layers.
And I love it. So like I don't think that, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily political. I would use more of the term it's relevant. It's currently and modernly relevant, if that makes sense.
One of the strengths and weaknesses of the comic medium, and I mean, we could argue where it comes from. I think it comes from kind of the improvisatory nature of the medium, and the fact that just we produce so much content so quickly that writers and artists have to sort of scrape themselves and scrape the world around them to make what they can, is that comic books are usually of their time. And what I mean is, you go back and read a 1940s comic and you're in the 1940s, you're with their values. It's less transcendent than some of the movies of the period. There's in the 50s, 60s. When you're reading 80s comics, you feel like you're in the 80s. When I watch Back to the Future, it feels very 80s, but it also feels relevant today. You know what I'm saying? Like comics don't age as well as other mediums sometimes. You have to kind of be in that mood and kind of see from their thing. So I think comics can't help but sort of reflect what they are, just in almost in the way they're made. We're just too desperate for material. We have to take something from where we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to read. I think that's a great point, Tom. It's important to read comics sort of like in a bottle, right? I mean, you go back and read some of the Claremont X-Men stuff, and some of that stuff has not aged well. But if you kind of remember where he was and where maybe some of the culture was, or what maybe he was trying to say, and that's just one example, of course. But like, you're absolutely right. They all reflect kind of the time, and I think it's a nice kind of way to kind of capture the moment, capture the art in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. They're wonderful historical documents of sort of where the culture is, and you can go back to the 60s and read like super crazy Archie comics where it feels like you're just making fun of the Beatles, and you can go to the 90s and feel the grunge. Like you can get all the feelings of our entire American history in sort of in comics. It's one of the pleasures of the medium.
Yeah,
and curses.
That's right. And again, I kind of alluded to it a moment ago, but what I find fascinating about your next title that we're going to talk about, which is Wonder Woman, is that, and we're only up to issue 6, at the time of this recording, is how precisely you've integrated modern issues like xenophobia, misinformed political rhetoric powered by extremist ideologies, and the power of the loud minority in our country and around the world into this plot. And there's a very specific sentence in,
the last book was just people punching each other. I swear to God, it's not that.
What? And what's funny about that last issue 6, is that there's a very specific quote or a specific line from that issue that I think really speaks to what I think this first arc is about. And I think it's the Sovereign that says this. They say, "We do not desire her death. There's too much risk in martyrdom. The dead can overthrow an empire the living could hardly touch." So my question for you is, am I correct in reading that the ultimate goal of Sergeant Steele and the Sovereign in this first arc and in this story is not to kill Diana, but to destroy her legacy?
Yeah, that's a little Jesus reference. I don't know. Sometimes I get a little religious. Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's his. I mean, you'll learn why, but the Sovereign feels that what Wonder Woman represents is the sort of the greatest threat to what he represents, and he sees her as kind of like a second American Revolution, and he's doing everything he can to stop that from sort of overthrowing his own power, and what Wonder Woman represents is all that is good, and she represents everything I had an issue for her and that kid, just choosing love over hate. Sounds like stupid like hippie shit, but she says that while she kicks someone in the face, and also just the idea that the power, basic American values, which to me seem zero. The way everyone in this country is raised, I feel like, I don't know why it's controversial, but basic American values of like, everybody is equal, everybody should have a stay, no matter where you are born or who you are at your birth or who you choose to be, you get an equal voice and you get an equal chance and an equal opportunity. Like, that's what Wonder Woman stands for. And the Sovereign, who gets his power from his hereditary power, and gets his power from who his father was and who his grandfather was, and gets his power from the lies of his lasso. That's just everything she's not. I mean, it's not like Wonder Woman's a very superhero comic. It's not as subtle as hopefully some of the other stuff I'm writing, but to me, it's still powerful.
Yeah. And I love the, you just mentioned Jack in that, I think it was issue 5, that whole, bringing Jack, kind of giving him his day. And, that is kind of hokey, and it is kind of like, oh, it's, she did everything just to give him one great day. But that's like, that's superheroes, man. Like that's totally, I think that's more like DC superheroes than anything. It's just like Superman, Wonder Woman, these characters who are okay being kind of like silly and dopey, and not dopey is probably not a great word to say, but like kind of just like I think you used the correct word, hokey. Like it's just like we're kind of nerdy and good, but we own it, right?
Yeah, it's corny. It's this is me learning from some of my peers, mainly from Tom Taylor. Although I hate to give that fucking Australian credit, but. I love his Nightwing book, his book, but what I love most about it, and I'm someone who wrote Grayson, so I wrote some Nightwing, is we were doing Grayson, we were kind of, still under Dan DiDio at the time, and Dan was very much, especially with the Grayson character, I like Dan, he's a personal, I like him as a person, but especially with Dick Grayson, he's like, don't give the audience what they want. They want Barbara and Dick. Don't give it to them. You have to. Maybe you can tease that for one thing, but as soon as they get it, you kind of ruin the story. Don't give him super handsome Dick. Don't give him, kill him. Torture him. And I was like, yeah, it was my first book. I was like, dude, what did? And then I saw Tom. He's like, I'm just gonna give people what they want with this book. I'm just gonna show you why this is a character that you love, and all the things you love about the character. Here they are on the page. And I was like, oh, that's a fucking brilliant way to write a superhero book. And so I stole that from Wonder Woman. Don't tell Tom that. He's got a big enough fucking ego. And so every issue of Wonder Woman is just about how awesome she is. That's it's different aspects of it, but it ends with her always sort of showing another why she's awesome in the same way Tom does with Nightwing. It's hopefully it's flattery and not just copying.
If I could pick your brain slightly on one particular aspect of this first arc of Wonder Woman. Aaron and I, we actually met while we were in the Army together. We were in the Army. I was in the Army from 2010 to 2014. We were stationed down in Fort Stewart in Savannah, Georgia. And obviously you spent some time in the military.
Thank you for your service. I say.
Yeah, of course.
I have no idea. People say that to me. I have no idea what the fuck to say next. So
I mean,
I'll put
you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. No. Well, if I got fucking paid, I probably got paid better than you also.
Well, and there's a character in this story that Delgado, who I think is kind of a very truthful depiction of sort of like this, I'm going to say American dream in quotations here, where if you grow up in a small Midwestern town, everyone tells you to go to the military, serve your country, protect freedom, all these things. And what freedom are we protecting anymore? That everyone tells you is this this beautiful, amazing thing that you're doing. And at the end of the day, it's scary. And regardless of whether you're actually, again, quote unquote, protecting freedom, it's scary. And these 18, 19, 20-year-olds are still doing it. And Delgado is like this perfect fixture for that idea, as far as like a young person joining the military, which both Aaron and I think, Tom, you did as well. And of course, his demise is almost like poetic in the sense that, the United States military is the leader in suicide across every single organization. I would say in the world that might be hyperbolic. I'm not sure, but it sounds right. And it's all for a lie. So I want to hear you kind of elaborate on that decision for this story.
I mean, first I should say, I'm deeply patriotic. I still have it in me. I'll never wash it out.
Why do you hate America? No,
I do. I love this goddamn country. I do not regret a moment I spent in its service. And to me, I served right after 9/11. I served in Iraq, which was kind of stupid because I was like, I'm going to go fight terrorists. And go fight Saddam. You're like, is he a terrorist? Don't worry about it. It's like, but I believe strongly in that mission and of stopping sort of the further 9/11 from happening and keeping the people that are struggling in this country safe. And I fucking believe in the American dream. I'm still that idiot. I still do. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I just watched that. I just listened to America Fuck Yeah too many times where I forgot it was ironic. And so all of that is true to me. But I do think what that scene was about was, I think there's a lie about that Sovereign was kind of this sort of lie of I don't want to say masculinity, that's the wrong thing, but like this lie that you kind of have to be a certain type of person to be a strong American, I guess is the way I would put it.
Sense of duty, maybe?
Yeah, so that sense of duty, or a sense of like you have to conform to a certain stereotype to be a great American hero. You got to be the fucking Marlboro Man. Mm-hmm. And anyone who's studied the history of the country, man, there are some fucking awesome Marlboro Man, but there's also some heroes who were just from all sorts of weird places. Einstein wasn't a Marlboro Man, but he fucking contributed. Mm-hmm. I know he wasn't American, but he came here and did shit. Or if you want to, Enrico Fermi, who helped us, win World War II, do that. Like it takes all types of incredible Americans to make this fucking thing work, and that's kind of what it was about. Like the Sovereign's like, I want you to conform to this certain type who would be alienated in this certain type of way, and to be just, you got to fit into this one square peg. That's what a goddamn American military patriot's like. And Delgado's like, that's not who I am. What are you talking about? He's like, hold this rope. That's who you are now. Mm-hmm. And that's what, and essentially that's what he says. Like he killed himself because he couldn't be this type because Wonder Woman made him feel ashamed or some bullshit like that. So yeah, that's to me what that sort of scene was about. That makes sense.
And you said something earlier that I think is kind of interesting, is that like, I think because I would, Aaron, I'll kind of speak for you a little bit if you want to jump in here a little bit. Being patriotic doesn't, there's a certain amount of truth that you have to have in order to be, like, I think the honest patriotic. Like the country has flaws, but I still love it. And what America?
Yeah, exactly. But that's what this country was supposed to be great, because we have a constitution that can be amended, because we can change and be better. That's what I always like about this country.
America,
at least it used to be that way.
Right. Well, and America's not great for what it is. It's what it can be, I think, is ultimately the way I kind of feel. So,
well, that's what the American. I was gonna say that's what the American dream is. It's the aspirations of becoming something better than what you were or are. Yeah. To have the capability, to have the freedom. That's the American dream. To be able to pursue those things that make you happy, that make you better than what you were. I could go on all day about the issues that I see in society and why America is kind of not necessarily aspiring to be that better, greater country that we always were, that we were built, that was the idea that we were built on as a country. Was we left our sovereign leaders, our sovereign king, to come over here and become to pursue what we wanted to become and be better. And right now we're not really indemnifying that. We're not really, portraying that idea of being better. We want to be, I don't know if
we're saying that we are. But
we're having it. We are, as a country, I know this is getting really fucking skewed here for this conversation, but we are having an identity crisis as a country right now, and that's what we need to solve. As somebody who grew up with a severe identity crisis and didn't know, thank God the military was there for me to help me to basically aim this gun of a person to figure out, to give him purpose and figure out what he needed to do to become his own person. Our country is facing an identity crisis, and unfortunately, we don't have, hokey superheroes like Wonder Woman who clearly portray those ideas, so that's the unfortunate thing of what we're going through, in my opinion, as a country. Mm-hmm. We are struggling, but we can get back to being what we're supposed to be and get on the right path. We just need to fucking pull ourselves up, as they say, by the bootstraps to fucking get there. Sorry.
I don't want to get all political, but let me get a positive spin on it, just to close it up. At least how I try to be optimistic about shit was like, Germany faced its fascist moment and was like, yeah, okay, we'll go with it. We faced and we're still facing our fascist moment, and we fucking overcame it. We didn't let it wash us down the stream, and our system looked like it was falling apart, but in the end, it did a little bit of holding, like it held. Mm-hmm. It didn't collapse like like Germany collapsed or like the Russians collapsed or like China. Maybe you can look at China collapsing during like our system, for all its fucking faults, we're still here. We're doing okay. We can talk on this podcast. I can say the word fuck a lot. Nobody's coming to get me yet. So
Get 'em, boys.
I'm gonna be the optimistic one on this podcast and be like,
can I spin it really quick to make it positive? The Wonder Woman talk positive, because I love the backup stories between Damian, John, and Lizzie. Like, yes,
let's talk about that, because that's so much fun. That's the best part of those goddamn issues. No offense to Daniel, who is killing it on the podcast.
Daniel is amazing, yeah. But Belen is incredible as well at these stories.
Yes.
And
oh god,
the line I think in issue 6 where Damian is telling Lizzie a story to make her go to sleep, and he says, and that's how Final Crisis really ended. True story. Look it up. I literally LOL'd while reading it. It was the funniest thing ever.
I cannot tell you how much fun I have writing those things. I did it 2 weeks. I write them in 1 week. I write 3 8-page stories, and it's the best like week of my life when I'm writing them. I'm just laughing. I'm telling my kids how to go. They're criticizing me because I'm not getting shit right. It's so I talked to Belen at New York Comic Con, but you were probably there. And she came up to me and she was really pissed at me. Not like super pissed, but she's like, why do you make me draw kangaroos? She's Spanish. Why did you make me draw kangaroos? I have no idea how to draw kangaroos. I live in Spain. And so I wanted to make it up for her. And I was like, what do you want to draw? What can I have? I'll put anything in there. And she's like, there's only 2 things I want to draw. I was like, what is it? She's like, I want to draw samurais and I want to draw corgis. So in the next backup you will see samurais, and the one after that you will see corgis, because that was my assignment I was given in terms of boxes. Yeah, but there's some awesome stuff coming up, man. In those backups, every one of them is fun. We got they're gonna learn to fly a kite. They're going to something that looks a lot like a Taylor Swift concert, but it's a Black Canary concert. And the backups are the most. I love Trinity. I love writing her. I love the 3 of them. They have such very fun chemistry. Because the 2 brothers fight, and then she's just off being wild. It's my favorite. Sorry, I'm just admiring my own writing, but my favorite line in that thing, if that's your favorite line, is when John wants to get her ice cream, and Damian yells at her and is like, "You found the only thing more vanilla than you, actual fucking vanilla."
That is something totally that Damian would say, and
that made me laugh.
Yeah.
Well, I don't get to write those kind of lines usually.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman never says that to Sovereign.
That's right.
I mean, we should fix that. So you've been on an insane run of critical successes with Danger Street, Gotham City Year One, Supergirl, One of Tomorrow, Love Everlasting, The Winning Card from The Brave and the Bold, Human Target, and everything else we've talked about during this conversation, especially your Teen Titans, 6
Teen
pages,
Titans
I think it was.
Yep.
6 pages.
Teen Titans Annual, yeah. Me and Will Pfeiffer killing it. The debut of Chimera, man, she took off.
Yeah.
She lit up the
shows
sky.
up in the DCU at some point.
Yeah, she's gonna be huge.
Nice. So from Bilquis to Jorge Fornes to Elsa Chartier to Mitch Garad to Daniel Sampier to Greg Smallwood, the interiors have been insanely beautiful, and compliment to your like a total compliment to your remarkable scripts. All that saying, how much are you involved in the process of picking these collaborators for these stories?
I mean, the shitty answer is it depends. I apologize that's the shitty answer. I mean, I just gave you the great example of me begging Bill, because don't think I didn't beg Greg when we came off of Human Target. When I was like, Greg, please, let's do the next thing together. And he's like, no, I got a thing lined up. I was like, oh, fuck you. So it depends on who says yes. A lot of my artists who I love to work with, my best friends, Clayman, Doc Shaner, David Marquez, Elsa, Joelle, they all did this horrible thing where they hooked up with a writer that I couldn't compete with, which was themselves. They're all writing for themselves now, so it's hard for me to throw that writer under the bus, and like I would Mark Waid or something. I mean, like Belen was suggested by my editor Brittany Holzer, who's brilliant. Greg Smallwood was suggested by my editor Ben Abernathy, who was equally brilliant. Jorge, I can take credit for. Jorge Fornes is the one artist I can really take credit for. Where I was on Batman, he would send me his like little splashes he drew on Twitter. I think he was doing like an Aftershock book or something like that, like a small publisher book. And I took his pages to DC and I was like, this guy should be on Batman. And they're like, that's insane. He's just a guy you know on Twitter. I was like, look at these pages. And they're like, he just looks like Mazzucchelli, like as if it was a bad thing. I was like, yes, he looks like Mazzucchelli.
Yeah,
that's exactly why I love him. So for some reason they didn't dig. I mean, that's why we did Rorschach, because that was sort of the compromise. They're like, I'll do Rorschach, this book you all want me to do, if I can have Jorge. And so yeah, that's the one I can take credit for is Jorge.
Yeah. Well, Tom, we have one final question for you, and unfortunately, we have to ask you about DC Studios. It was recently announced.
Oh, you're gonna get an answer that you're not gonna believe, man. This is gonna fucking blow your mind.
It was recently announced that House of the Dragon's Millie Alcock will be playing Kara in the DCU, which is exciting. But also, James Gunn has been pretty vocal about how he, reveres your work. So much so that we recently spotted you at a DC Studios meeting where he named you as one of the quote architects of the DCU. So, Tom, we know that you can't really talk about specifics. We're not going to ask you anything specific that you've worked on or anything like that. But outside of Supergirl, which upcoming DC Studios project are you most looking forward to?
Wink.
That's such a nice question. I appreciate you asking it. It's very awesome. You're just gonna get a shitty ass answer from me that you don't even
give us the PR answer.
I'm not gonna say. I'm just gonna be like, everything is great and wonderful, and I look forward to everything. Blah blah fucking blah. Like, it's nothing. You're gonna get nothing out of me. It's not worth me even saying it out loud. It's just that's what you're gonna get. Everything is great and everything is wonderful. That's my. You can't
say
answer.
one you're excited about, perhaps.
No, I can't say shit. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying I just told you everything is. Why would I be excited when everything is wonderful and magical?
You're excited about everything.
Everything is wonderful and great. Yeah.
Blink twice if it's creature commandos.
That's my horribly boring, shitty answer, and I apologize if that's all I can say. But that's all I can say. It's all wonderful. It's all great. Everyone is great.
Yeah. No need to apologize.
Yeah, we appreciate your candid, tight-lippedness. Maybe we can get something from you at a con or something when we're not recording or anything like that. But
as soon as they free me, man, I can't wait to talk about everything.
We're excited for you because that's really awesome. I mean, looking at this picture that James posted online, I mean, you're in a room full of just absolute creative giants.
The room where it happens.
And it's super cool that, I will say, if any PR is listening, I'm just very excited that not only are they involving a comic creator in this process, but they are, involving one of the best, if not the best comic creator in this process. So,
holy shit, is Tom Taylor going to be there? Holy, that fucking guy.
But, like I said, I just wanted to at least and see if you could answer anything. I totally understand why you can't. But, Tom, once again.
I appreciate the question. It's great. It's a great question. I'm sorry for the shitty answer.
Yeah. Aaron, do you have anything real quick? I know you might have a question.
I have a statement for Mr. King. I just wanted to say, as somebody who is,
is it about heroes in crisis? It's lots of things happen.
No, it's about Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
Oh,
and I just wanted to say that as the first, I've read the entire thing, I binged the entire thing in one sitting, and I absolutely loved it. The writing, the depth of Ruby, and even what I don't know. Are you an anime fan at all?
No, that's not my nerd. That's the one thing I'm shitty when it comes to anime and manga.
I was gonna say there's one particular superhero. His name's One Punch Man. All right,
I know One Punch Man. I can at least know that.
See, you're a little anime nerd, huh?
A little.
So he's got, he's kind of got this nonchalant attitude about because he knows that he can pretty much beat anybody with one punch. And I loved kind of this attitude from Kara during, Woman of Tomorrow, and just her kind of nonchalant, the entire time, she's underpowered because not having the yellow sun. But I just think that her attitude, I love the way that you wrote her attitude. Mm-hmm. Throughout this entire series, and I just wanted to say, from all the depths of the story, the moral issues that they both had to face, both Ruby and Kara. I just want to say, well done. I'm sure you hear it from everybody, but I just, I appreciate Chris for having me, for suggesting that, and I appreciate you for writing it. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Let me give credit where it's due. Steve Orlando, the writer Steve Orlando, he was the first person I approached when I got the Supergirl gig, and he's the one who sort of laid her character and kind of revealed to me sort of what she is and the sort of difference of, her growing up on Krypton versus Superman. Like she'd been through something that was very eye-opening. And my editors on that, Jamie Rich and Brittany Holzer, that book was originally pitched as Supergirl in sort of the Ruthie role, as kind of the innocent, and it was them who said, what if she wasn't the innocent? What if she was kind of the Rooster Cockburn? What if she was the veteran? And that changed the whole book. So yeah, that attitude you're reading, that comes from Steve and Brittany and Jamie. So they deserve a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Where can I look to get more information? And maybe you're not the person, but I assume that you're the person to ask about this. I need to know more.
Central Intelligence Agency? Oh, we'll talk.
I need more information on where I can look for how you developed, or like how kind of you pulled Comet into this story. Like that was just I don't know anything about Comet, and he just shows up and it's just like boom. Like and then boom. Man.
Yeah, Comet's a complicated character, man. Comet's because he's not a horse. He's a man, half horse, who happens to have transformed into a horse, who is in love. If you want the craziest, there's a Lois Lane comic from I think like 1972 where Lois Lane falls in love with Comet the horse. And I highly suggest if you want to read the craziest fucking comic book you ever read in your life.
Sounds like somebody's weird kink.
That is some weird ass Bob Kanigher shit.
Yeah. If the Silver Age was anything, it was kinky. So I'll just say that.
I think it's like 92 or something. It's in the 90s.
Yeah.
Lois Lane.
Well, Tom, once again, we wanted to thank you for coming onto the show now for, again, the third time to discuss your work. And I would generally say that we hope to have you back on in the future. But with, again, this being your third time, we'll just say that we'll see you next time that you're on.
All I'm saying is I see fucking Christian Ward on here doing number 4 before I am.
Him and James.
He's not even a goddamn American. He's a Brit. Here I am talking. Oh.
James,
all right.
James Tynan and Christian will be on in like a month, so you've got some competition for that.
Oh, he's already coming back.
He's already coming back.
Goddamn.
You know what? Just start every time we do a show. Just send Tom a link that way he can just pop in randomly.
Yeah, just say hi and leave.
Yeah.
Well, say hi to Christian and congratulate him on passing me and breaking my fucking record. I'm always in his shadow. I get it.
Well. We'll pass the baton off to you one more time. Is there anything that you want to plug? Any socials you want to highlight before we let you go?
I just want to say thank you. Just thank you to the people who are picking up Supergirl. Thank you for the people who are reading my books. My books are weird. They're off-center. I talk about animal fans. And so people only buy them because people recommend them. That's the only way they get in all the hands. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you all for spreading the word. That's it. Just get that out there.
Our pleasure.
Yeah. Well, Tom, once again, thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.